Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Kale and Kettlebells. Just gonna adjust my mic here. And in today's episode, we are going to review our predictions of the last 16 second legs, discuss the matches a little bit. I watched 2.5 matches, with 2.5 men. So and then we'll give our predictions for the next round, which I think will be somewhat straightforward, but there's a little bit of room for interest there too. So yeah, which match should we start with, Margo?
Sure. So we'll go in the same order we've been going in the recent episodes leading up to this,
Sure.
just for simple reference as well.
Mhm.
Let's start with Arsenal versus PSV. I'll let
Yeah.
you start it off.
Yeah. Well, that's the one, what's funny is when we do, you start doing these predictions, there's always an inclination to feel like you got to pick at least one or two underdogs, right? And so to pick an underdog in this round, I picked PSV given their performance against Juventus, but yeah, woefully incorrect. And hey, good for Arsenal. Obviously the league has eluded them now, but after the international break, if they get Saka back, Martinelli back, okay, maybe Real Madrid, who is going to war every week fighting for La Liga, they didn't look as good as they did against Man City, against Atletico. Part of that is the way Atletico play, but that's interesting for the next round. I guess I won't build in my prediction yet. I'll just say it like that. Good for
Yeah.
Arsenal. They proved us wrong definitively. It's all good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was obviously over after the first leg, and it is what it is. I actually didn't watch a last thing on this before we moved to the next tie was I believe if I'm correct, Perisic scored another very
He
nice goal,
did.
which I didn't
Good for
watch
him.
that actually, but I actually meant to pull that up. I was curious. So yeah, I
He's a
know you're
legend
a
of the
big
game,
fan of
that
yeah,
man.
for sure.
Yeah, he's a
Even
legend
for
of the
me
game.
who hasn't watched a lot of Perisic in his prime, I was always aware of how good he was, sort of not at that sort of insane echelon of, Messi, Ronaldo, etc., like top five sort of player, but guy's a
Oh,
special player.
he
How
absolutely
old is
is.
he now? Do you know? You must know. I bet you know
He's
his
like,
age
I
off
think
the top
he's
of your head.
36. I think he's 36.
Yeah,
He's coming off an ACL injury.
it's
But
crazy.
hey, those Croatians, look at Modric still playing. I don't Modric is what, 38, 39, still doing incredible work. I mean, the World Cup is next summer. I don't know. I can't recall if they retired from international duty. They might have.
Yeah,
But imagine they were both there. I'm not sure. Again, I have to look
yeah,
into this. I can't remember if they retired,
yeah,
maybe, but
yeah.
yeah, fascinating though.
Very much so. All right, cool. So let's shift to Real Madrid and Atletico. And also just
Yep.
quickly, I obviously also went for the underdog with PSV and was just as wrong as you were. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So
That's a lesson learned for us for
yeah,
future to be
yeah.
respect the top teams.
All
I
right, go
mean, yeah,
ahead.
look, yeah, I mean, I watched both games in the entirety. Obviously just watched the Real Madrid Atletico game last night. And yeah, went to pens, and I think the tie deserved pens in the same way that the PSG Liverpool tie deserved pens. But you got to when it goes down to the wire, Real Madrid always has a way to pull it out. You just don't see Real Madrid losing at this stage of the competition.
Mhm.
Atletico gave them an honest effort. Very unfortunate the Alvarez penalty. It's you don't like to see a shootout loss in that way. Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. And now I mean, on some level, I wanted Real Madrid Liverpool, but to see what PSG did to Liverpool, and I mean they did, and we're gonna talk about it next. I mean, I think so, and I do. In the end, PSG, they did deserve to go through. We have to say.
Yeah,
So
for
now
sure.
I'll be content with an Mbappe PSG reunion
Yeah, yeah.
as a
And
fan.
actually, I have a slight thought of that, which I'll allude to
Yeah,
later. I have a fun not a prediction per se, but if
yeah,
something plays out a certain way, I have a couple thoughts on that. Um, I picked wrong again, actually, with this. I was going out on a limb, and even though Atletico wouldn't be a huge underdog in this, I thought they could pull it off, and I think they proved that they were close. I mean, they literally lost to penalty shootout in the end. They were what Atleti proved is that there's a reason why there's a three-way serious
yeah,
race in La Liga, and that all three of those giants in the Spanish league are arguably like three of the best clubs. I know people talk about the Prem a lot, and we tried to talk a little bit about the depth of each league and see if there'd be a way to compare them. But as far as like the top 3 to 5 in each league, or let's just say top three
hmm
for this, I mean, all three of those teams can go toe to toe with any and every team in the entire Premier League and arguably beat them, right? So
Yeah, I mean the performance of the tightness of La Liga combined with the performance of the top teams in Europe, it is starting to make the Ballon d'Or race more interesting for sure. I think the elimination of Liverpool, there's still a lot to play out. I think Salah's probably still a favorite, but Rafinha's definitely it's going to be tough. What if Barca win the triple? I think it's done. I think Rafinha will, if Rafinha continues his performance, I think he will win in those conditions. But there's still a lot to be determined.
yeah,
Also, the EFL Cup final on Sunday. If Liverpool beat Newcastle, that will help Salah if he has
a
a big
little bit.
game. But
I'm
you
sure
got
that's
to play big in the
weighted
big game
extremely small. Yeah, that has an extremely small weight to it.
for sure.
Also, I don't know how much this will come into play, but I think because Liverpool have already run away with the EPL
Yeah.
title, like it's almost going to be sort of a recency bias issue, almost like as if it wasn't that close, so it's not as epic. And I wonder if there are slight factors like that are going to play a role in the end when it comes down to a tight race for the Ballon d'Or, like out of Salah's favor. I wonder. Anyways, that's just a thought I'm having.
It's still an amazing accomplishment it's an insane accomplishment what he's done. It's a historic season, so it's worth a lot. I mean, it is true. I mean, I think it's more so even beyond the recency bias. I mean, look, Arsenal have been ravaged by injuries, so they eliminated themselves from the race essentially. City is having a historically poor season, so that is, when you look at the La Liga context and the competitiveness of that race, it does change the picture, right? It does dilute the season a little bit. I mean, which is like so harsh to say, but let's see. I mean, there's still a lot to be determined. So
Yeah, you're right.
Salah's having an amazing season. His season is going to go down in history. Liverpool will win the title, which is an amazing accomplishment. And, and history will look favorably upon this Liverpool team. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely fair. Let's shift over. I don't think there's anything else too notable with the actual second game of Real versus Atletico. Do we have any specific thoughts of any key moments in the game that you wanted to touch on before we shift to Liverpool PSG in the end?
Oh my, I mean, it was a long game, given the extra time and the penalties. And I can't even recall
Yeah.
anything, nothing comes to mind, but it was a great game. I mean, it was tight as you would expect, right? It's what it is.
At what point did now here's a funny question because I actually didn't end up watching the game with you. The second leg of this matchup. Vinny, did he missed a penalty in regular time, is that correct?
Yeah,
That's
he
something that
shanked it
comes
over
to
the
mind.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he
So
missed the
that
penalty over the
it's
bar.
definitely not
Yeah,
ideal. That's the only thing I can think of that really
yeah.
stood out as an interesting. And he had a horrible game overall. Vinny had a horrible game. It'll be easily forgotten if they keep advancing. That will just get tucked away as if it never happened, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's worth noting, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think Vinny's a candidate really for the Ballon d'Or this year.
There's
Yeah, I
gonna
think
be some sort of issue. Well, okay, I'm not saying this as a
yeah,
certainty, but sometimes with these like subjective MVP style um awards, you have an issue where a player felt like, some percentage of viewers felt like a player was snubbed the previous year, and then that has weight. That has a like a gravitational force to it almost that is in their favor for the next year. Like that's a thing too. That's
yeah.
an
It would
issue in
have to be a
certain
close argument though.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
But
think it's
in
close enough yet.
one other sport that comes to mind, I'm sure maybe it's not just this, but the NBA. Not that I follow closely for multiple reasons. These days, a lot of people feel like the NBA is not a good product as a sport these days, but that is an issue more than it should be in the NBA. But anyways, we'll see what happens.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's shift to another insane tie, which was Liverpool and PSG.
Yeah, I mean, I have a soft spot for Liverpool, which I've said before. Going into extra time, so I was with like our friend Mitch, and going into extra time, I kind of said, or going into penalties particularly, it's pretty much hard to refute, even for me as a Liverpool fan, with that bit of bias. I mean, PSG probably deserve to go through. I mean, they really, like, as someone who doesn't really is not inclined to watch them play because League One is kind of house league in terms of competitiveness. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty blown away. I mean, they deserve to go through. And Salah didn't, I mean, Nuno Mendes shut him down. I mean, there's memes about that a little bit on the internet. I mean, look, anyone, it's tough, right? You're playing these top teams. You can't have those performances all the time. Salah's numbers in the Champions League have been very poor compared to the Premier League. And, that's why you see that clip of Henri, which I can't, well, I mean, you're not on Instagram, so you don't get the
Yeah,
benefit of
yeah.
always seeing these. But Henri went on record as saying Rafinha is ahead of Salah because
Mm,
Rafinha is performing in both leagues,
sure.
right? Now, Rafinha is going to, now look, Barcelona has played so Barcelona's going to have to play one of Inter or Bayern Munich. Dortmund's a reasonable competition, so Rafinha's going to have to have an impact in the semifinals, in the finals should they make it, and he's going to have to finish the season strong in La Liga. But if he does, like I said, you know, he good for him though. I mean, what a story if he wins it.
Yeah,
You can't be upset about that at all.
yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
for
I
sure.
digress.
Absolutely.
It's what it is. I mean, yeah. I mean, PSG deserve to go through. It's as
Yeah,
simple as that.
yeah.
Dembele is out of his mind. I mean, look, Dembele is a candidate too. Let's just see.
I mean, real dark horse. So when it's his campaign's been insane, especially finishing wise, and he's just I don't know where this turnaround came from him because he's been a top level dribbler with I would say relatively low composure as far as shooting. Like I don't even think it's
You know,
arguable as far as shooting and finishing plays. And then out of nowhere, this guy's taken a massive leap forward, and I don't exactly know. It's such a sharp contrast, to be honest, compared to multiple previous years that I can't even fully wrap my head. Like even as an, we're athletes ourselves. We're not professional athletes by any stretch of the imagination, but like as a someone who, when you've you know honed your craft, especially at that level where the margins are fine. To find any extra improvement is no easy task for these players. For a guy like him to be the type of player he's been for years, and then
no,
he's
look at
pretty established as the type of player he is, and then this year he's like taking it many levels higher. It's very few times you see something like that at that level, to be honest. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
it's. I mean, people who are more astute. I'm looking up, and it's kind of fun to look up stuff while we're
Yeah, yeah,
chatting. People who are more astute have higher level insight. But look, I mean, he's playing on obviously a very good team. That helps any attacking player. He's in great form.
yeah.
He's 27 right? So
Yeah,
he's
he's
getting to that
relatively
prime.
young.
That's
Yeah,
still
he's hitting
relatively
his
young,
prime. Yeah, yeah.
right?
But
He's
the jump he's taken just objectively is rare at
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
27
He's
is
never
pretty
scored. He's
darn
never
young.
scored more than 15 goals in a season before. His best season, goal scoring wise, was back when he was playing for Rennes in League One, in Ligue in
Mm,
2015-16. So, it could be something about the French league. Obviously, the French league is
yeah,
not
yeah,
overly competitive. I mean, the Bundesliga probably is more competitive than the French league. I think that's fair to say.
yeah.
I think that's very fair to
Probably,
say.
I think it
Yeah.
would be.
Because you got the Dortmunds of the world, you got the Leverkusens of the world, whereas the Liga there's no one
There's a
else. I mean, there's no French teams in the Europa
yeah
League. There's no
quicker
French teams
drop off
in the
after the
Champions
first
League.
two, three.
So
Yeah,
that's part of it, right? Because he's not going to war every Saturday, every Sunday, like playing top teams. Like that
yeah,
takes a toll on you, right? In
yeah,
the Premier League, the top 12 teams are just like full of internationals, full of
yeah, yeah,
savages. You got to go to
yeah, yeah,
war,
yeah,
right? So that obviously we have to consider that. But nonetheless, I
yeah,
mean, look, his performances are amazing.
yeah.
So France is in a good position for the World Cup next year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So at this point, I'll allude to the thought I had yesterday, which I did mention to you briefly, I think yesterday as well. But my thought is this: if PSG go further than Real Madrid, I believe this will also be forgotten in time. But I think that in reality, that is a noticeable stain on Mbappe's career. Like if you were to look back at arguably the most talented or best player in the world. We can argue that, whatever. I'm not convinced he is outright the best player in the world, but a lot of people would make that argument. He certainly has probably the highest ceiling of maybe all attackers in the world. Maybe you could say that possibly, but for that type of player, a one of one, to go to the most dominant team last year, right? Real Madrid won, right?
Mhm.
UCL last year. If Real Madrid slip up at some point, and especially if they slip up before PSG or against PSG, which would be even more fascinating, the storyline that you just alluded to, I think it deserves to be, a negative sort of stain on his, like it looks bad on Mbappe straight up, very simply. to go from a team that ends up getting better and more they seem to be more what's the word I'm looking for? You know, as a team, like,
Well,
you know
Luis
what I'm
Enrique,
saying?
the coach, they do better without him. And that could be
Yeah.
due to a combination of factors. I think Dembele, part of Dembele's good performance is that he's the main man. You know what I mean? That he's probably the type of player that does better
Yeah.
in those conditions.
Sure.
He doesn't have to answer anyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, here's the reality. The season is only 66%, 75% done, and the most important part's still to come. So it's
Yeah.
very hard to really make that judgment. And they're the same age, so even more so, that judgment can be made in 5 years when they have 5 years at their prime, right? But
And
yeah, I
you're
mean,
you're
but
at that point, you're making a direct comparison a little bit between
yeah,
Mbappe and Dembele. I'm not even comparing the two of them. I'm saying just generally speaking that there are probably some like hidden flaws to a player like Mbappe who's got an incredibly high ceiling, maybe the highest ceiling of all players in the entire world, but his elements of his game are missing. And if all I'm saying is if Real Madrid slip up after acquiring arguably the best attacker in the world, after already having arguably the best team in the world, while their only competitor like Man City has fallen off mainly because of a Rodri injury that derailed their whole team's balance basically and quality. He ended up being the key cog for them, and it's been proven this entire year ever since his injury. If they falter, and if PSG, in the wake of Mbappe leaving, do at least as well as them or better, all I'm saying is like I think that means a tremendous amount. Just straight up,
yeah.
forget the names
It's
attached. It
very
doesn't matter.
theoretical for now, though. It's
Yeah,
very
but it
theoretical.
does say something, I
We have to
think.
see.
The best, most dominant team gets the best player and ends up doing worse. It's just simple. You can summarize it in one sentence. Does worse than the team that he left, which had relatively little star power until, since he left. Obviously, they got Cavaro, who's a special talent, but no one would argue he's in the same realm, to be honest. No one would have made that
No.
argument. No one would have made the argument that Dembele's anywhere close up until this campaign, and he turned it on. And you have a young up and coming player like Barcola, but no one would predict that these guys are all doing that well. I just think it's something to make a
Yeah.
sort of public
It's a
thing.
good point. There's a lot of I mean, there's a lot of factors, and also it means much more to play for Real Madrid. The pressure is infinitely higher. The league is infinitely more competitive.
Yeah,
So
but you also have a
there's
way
a
better
lot that
team
goes into
around you,
it.
though. Theoretically, like just on
Yeah,
as at
but
face value.
yeah,
Look, when you the other 10 players on the pitch are all world class players, basically. You know, it should offset
yeah,
some of that. And if you are basically the best attacker in the world, okay, you can have rough patches and like rough stretches. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, you know,
yeah.
we'll see
Both
how
teams
we'll see how
also
it
have
turns out.
international starters for top countries, right? So it's tough. We're gonna see. I mean, look, we'll
Yeah.
see. You could very well be right. I mean, Mbappe still owns the best individual performance of the season against City, but yeah, he's not been himself this season. There's no getting around that, right?
Yeah.
But like the most important part is to come, and I
Still to come.
really
Yeah.
want to see Real
Yeah.
Madrid and PSG. So
Totally. Yeah. No, I'm very curious for that reason, to be honest, as well, which we'll get into later. And if we don't have
we'll
time
see.
today,
We'll revisit this. We'll revisit
yeah.
this because
Yeah.
I think ultimately, yeah, I think the Mounts have a great season. I think ultimately I think Mbappe will come through and Real Madrid will do well. I think I want to see that as a neutral, but we'll see. We'll see.
Absolutely. So let's shift now because uh, we'll have to run. And I know you're going to be especially tight on time.
Yeah, we'll record again tomorrow too, though, so
Yeah.
we'll make up for it.
Let's see. So Aston Villa, Club Brugge. Well, this will be a pretty quick one. I'll
That's
let you
light.
sort of
Yeah,
summarize this up.
yeah,
I
good for
mean, they
Aston
took care
Villa.
of business, right? Aston Villa
Yeah,
took care of business. I don't think there's really too much to get into there.
yeah,
I
they earned
mean,
the right to go up against PSG. And Unai Emery, I think he was the PSG coach in the past. I don't know if I'm having a brain fart, but nonetheless, I mean, Asensio was at PSG. He's now at Villa. He's in great form.
yeah, true,
Rashford,
true. Yeah,
I
it's
should
an
know this.
interesting matchup, which
Yeah,
we'll probably have to definitely save for the next episode,
yeah,
in light of what we dug into so far. So
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
think
think
you
maybe
gotta
just
favor PSG in that one, but yeah, we can
yeah,
get it
yeah.
for next time for
That'll be
sure.
a spicy one though, 100%.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah, if Aston Villa is not anywhere close to Liverpool in the Prem, then you would assume, but math doesn't always work that way in sports.
100%.
Uh, Barcelona versus Benfica, also a pretty straightforward one. If you want to summarize that one briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw Lamal's
Yeah, 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 yeah,
assist
yeah.
to
He's
Rafinha.
People
Oh
who hate
man,
on Yamal, I always say Lamal. I always
yeah,
trip up with. I have a funny thing of switching the Y in the first and
yeah.
last name
Christian
with
said
the
the
L.
same thing. Our other cousin, yeah, it's
I
funny.
always do that for some reason. But people who hate on him are just, for lack of a better term, they're just haters. It's
His season at 17 is superior to Messi and Ronaldo. I mean, look, although that doesn't mean that much, it's really impressive. I mean, his season at 17, what
yeah,
he does, like the thing with Barca that I love, and apparently, like I don't watch a lot of Barca because it's not as easy to watch where like in Canada, um in the way I watch games. But apparently Pedri, by the way, is having an
yeah,
amazing season. He could be a dark horse for awards, but basically I like Barca's attack because you literally have Lewandowski, one of the best strikers of all time, at the tail end of his career. Lamal, theoretically, the golden boy, starting his
yeah,
career. You have Rafinha in the middle,
yeah,
literally
yeah,
10 years on either side in his prime, and
yeah,
increasingly a top two Ballon d'Or candidate.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, what a beautiful attack. And now, look,
yeah.
we'll
You're
talk
right.
about it later. They have Dortmund in the next round, and that is, I mean, Dortmund is this is not the Dortmund of last year, really, and they barely squeezed by Lille. They're very not doing well in the Bundesliga.
Yeah,
So I think that's the easiest last eight matchup for them, or second easiest behind Villa, I guess, depending how you look at it.
yeah.
I don't. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right. I think,
yeah,
look, I'm sure the betting odds would reflect that as well, probably,
yeah.
which I don't have in front of me, but I would assume that that would be the case.
It's Barca
You're
Atletico this
100% right.
weekend as well. It's
Sure.
Barca Atletico.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a massive game,
Yes, yes.
massive game.
Absolutely.
What a season this is! Like so many,
Yeah,
like the big games just never end.
yeah.
It's,
I agree
yeah, it's
100% with
fun to
everything you say.
win.
I have nothing extra to add about
Yeah,
Barcelona. I would prefer to see them go through. I'm sure they're favored.
yeah.
Nothing against Dortmund, but yeah, should be very interesting. It also makes for spicier storylines in the later stage, if that's the case. Yeah, Dortmund, Lille shouldn't take us too long to go through. You watched
Yeah,
more of the games than I did, but I did
yeah.
watch
I
packages.
picked Leo for my our Canadian boy Jonathan David. He scored, which is great. Yeah, in the end, I mean, Dortmund has a little bit more, right? You look at the squad top to bottom. I mean, Dortmund was in the Champions League last year. They have the top scorer in the Champions League, which is Garassi, or he's in the top two or three. And he's a top. He's one of the top strikers right now, below like aside from the usual suspects, right?
True.
So I mean, I want selfishly, like, even though I went for Lille, I wanted to see Dortmund Barcelona. I think that's a very scintillating matchup, and that's a great last eight match.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. I mean, not that we're making predictions now. I think Barcelona's
Yeah,
gonna win
yeah,
that one.
sure.
Goes without saying.
And to be fair, it was a close match. Like, they were
Yeah,
the
yeah.
odds reflected that before the legs started, and it was what, one goal difference in the
Lille
end,
get a
right?
good account of themselves, I
Yeah.
think. But
They proved
it's
that it
what
could
it
have gone
is.
their way.
Barcelona's winning was beating either team in the next round, so it's all good.
Yeah, you would assume. I guess anything can happen, but yeah, we both assume
Yeah,
that's the case. Yeah. So Leverkusen, Bayern Munich. Also, what we didn't, well,
destruction.
for the second leg, not having Florian Wirtz is actually just a nail in the coffin before the second leg even started. If the 3-0 deficit wasn't already enough, which was basically already over anyways, once Wirtz went down, the guy's an underrated world class talent. I think that's all that needs to be said. Um,
Kane is another one.
yeah,
Kane is just doing crazy work, and you gotta like a guy like Harry Kane. You gotta, independent of who he's playing for, it's hard to root against him. What he's doing. Olise is like doing insane work.
yeah. Elise
You
is
know what I
nasty.
mean?
Yeah,
So Bayern Inter, and like, I mean, look, Inter brushed aside Feyenoord, like it's all good. We don't even talk about that. That was kind of, I mean, look, it's easy to say after the fact, but it's kind of a foregone conclusion. The
yeah.
tie of the next leg for me is Bayern, which is
Bayern,
this,
Inter. Yeah,
Bayern and Inter, which are generally have been the top teams in the respective leagues in the last few years.
yeah,
That is a mega matchup. I love that. And, let's just, again, we're playing prediction. Those two teams are just going to go to war and to have the right to go against this special Barcelona team.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
going to be good. That is probably good. That's going to be the most competitive match of the next round. I mean,
Well, on
Arsenal.
paper, before the game starts, yes,
Yeah.
right, for sure. Obviously, I think every year there are matchups that are always going to surprise people. Who knows which way these things go? But yeah, on paper, before the matchup, obviously
It's the
those
one
two
I'm
are going to
most
be.
excited for in terms of
Yeah,
tightness.
they should be. Yeah,
Um,
they should be.
I want to introduce. I mean, look. I mean, again, Kane. Always respect Harry Kane. What a finisher. What a special player. But for as far as Serie A goes, and like I want Inter
Yeah, that's
to
fair.
go on because Inter Barcelona, way back in the day when Mourinho was coaching Inter, they've had some historic
That's
matchups,
pretty
right?
crazy too. Yeah.
So like
Well,
that would be
Even Bayern, Barca have history. So both of either way, whatever happens,
true.
right? I mean, I think different years, massive results for either.
Yeah, you can't go
Team.
wrong. That semifinal matchup, you can't go wrong. Either way.
Yeah,
But
but that is
I
interesting.
mean, imagine I mean, a Barcelona. The idea that there could be a El Clasico final this year.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's always like I mean, it's looking way too far ahead.
yeah, yeah.
That is like a neutral's dream. But
True, 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 true.
yeah. All right, we'll pick this. We'll
Cool.
pick this where we left off tomorrow. I got to
Absolutely,
roll. It was a good chat though.
absolutely. Okay,
Very good
perfect,
chat.
perfect. All right.